Welcome to everyone, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, to our Maritime Insights webinar titled A Japanese Trading House Propelling Maritime Ammonia. We're taking a little time out from the IBIA Mediterranean Energy and Shipping Conference here in Malta this week to discuss the ITOCHU Corporation project. With us is General Manager of the Green Innovation Business Unit, Machinery Company, Mr. Takeo Akamatsu. Just so you know, this is recorded and the total duration of the event will be 1 hour, and the recording will be made publicly available after the event. So, who is the AEA and FMA? The Ammonia Energy Association, the AEA, is a global non-profit industry association that promotes the responsible use of ammonia in a sustainable energy economy. The AEA's mission encompasses both the decarbonization of ammonia for existing applications, as well as the adoption of low-carbon ammonia in new applications, including direct use as a fuel for electric power generation for maritime transport, and indirect use as a hydrogen carrier and carbon-free energy commodity. With initial foundation rooted back in 2004, the AEA membership now includes 176 corporations around the world. We, as the Maritime Directorship of the AEA, are working to bring the maritime industry into the low-carbon ammonia fuel opportunity, while also helping to empower the ammonia industry with an offering towards the maritime fuel sector. So what are these webinars about? This is the 6th AEA Maritime Insights webinar. We are handpicking select initiatives from around the world which illustrate how solutions are being found and progress made towards the implementation of maritime ammonia fuel. We are dedicated to raising levels of understanding and connecting stakeholders. On the Ammonia Energy Association website, you will find summaries and recordings of webinars. So if you've missed a few, don't worry, you can catch up. By the way, our next webinar will take place the week between the 10th and the 14th of October. We're currently working on a lineup of speakers to dig into the detail on progressing safety for design and operation with maritime ammonia fuel. There's rightfully a lot of good debate out there in the industry with regard to this critical aspect. So we do need to hear from some of the people involved with this detail. So about today's webinar. Any of you who've been following the development of maritime ammonia fuel recognize ITOCHU or the ITOCHU Study. We hear people saying things like, ITOCHU are covering that, or I think they're also part of the ITOCHU Study, or isn't the ITOCHU Study also covering that subject? Indeed, to quote from our own introduction for this webinar, as one of the 5 major sogo shosas, which are Japanese trading houses, I discovered, ITOCHU is playing a key role in developing the business case for maritime ammonia. Among other things today, we will hear about an upcoming FID, final investment decision point, for an ammonia-propelled bulk carrier, a long-term target of perhaps 1,000 ships in the water, and some detail on the ITOCHU Joint Study Framework, which encompasses many exciting initiatives. So, without further ado, Akamatsu-san, maybe you could take us through the ITOCHU study.
Okay, thank you very much for introduction, Conor-san, and also the opportunity to explain our challenge by the webinar hosted by Ammonia Energy Association. So thank you very much again. So we will share my screen. Can you see that screen?
Yes, that's looking good.
Okay, so we would like to explain our challenge, so-called integrated project. But before that, we would like to introduce our activity. I mean, as Conor-san pointed out, ITOCHU is a Japanese trading house. So we have to say we are not a shipyard or we are not a shipping company. So means we cannot initiate any development, but we can support the party who intend to initiate or develop the project with zero emission. So that is our role. So we originally from Marine Department to handle the vessel, mainly from Japanese shipyards for many ship owners in Japan or overseas. But from this April, we shift to a green innovation business unit to handle ammonia fuel vessel with ammonia supply chain, together with our another department. And before ammonia, of course, today we have several existing fuel, not only conventional heavy fuel, but also like LNG, methanol, or biofuel, which we can say a low emission fuel in any cases. But if industries intend to shift for zero emission, then we have to consider something different. I suppose which should be based on hydrogen. But hydrogen itself, there's a challenge to use as a maritime fuel. So we as a trading house, because we are not a technical developer, so our role is to achieve kind of commercialization within 5 years. So in such case, for hydrogens, we assume it may take a bit more than 5 years. So we focus on others. And if talk about the carbon recycled fuel, like e-methanol or e-LNG, of course, this is carbon neutral, net zero. But of course, still we are not sure what will be a definition of net zero. And also, we have already engine for both methanol and LNG. And so in such case, as a marine department in trading house, there's not many area to make contributions. So now our team is focusing on ammonia. But of course, ITOCHU is a big organization, and some other departments are handling methanol or LNG. Therefore, please do not misunderstand. We are working for ammonia, but we are not the ammonia producer. Therefore, ammonia is just we are focusing, but if it is not, then we just shift to something others. So that is our positions. So our target is to achieve zero emission. So that is our target. And as to integrated project as a trading house, so we are not only focusing on the shipbuilding, but also shipping and fuel. So from 2020, when we launched the project, originally we started the project with the Japanese shipyard, Nihon Shipyard, together with other parties like MA Energy Solutions, Mitsui & Machinery, Crash NK, to develop ammonia vessel with ammonia engine. But in order for us to materialize the project, we need many parties, partners. So we invited a Japanese shipping company to work together, like a K-Line, like NS United Kaiyun. And at the same time, we got the Green Innovation Fund support from Japanese government in 2021. And thereafter, we are continuously developing a project for pilot project with potential end users. But at the same time, in order for us to encourage end user to go together, we have to prepare the bunkering side. So in 2021, we executed the MOU of ammonia bunkering with our partner here, which is Pavilion Energies, Total Energies, MOL, who are working for LNG bunkering, and also the BOPAC, who is handling ammonia at their facility in Singapore. And then we made a development of ammonia bunkering vessel concept with Sembcorp Marine and obtained AIP end of last year. And recently in April, we executed the MOU with the MPA to accelerate our bunkering business in Singapore. But in parallel, as Conor-san pointed out, we are handling joint study framework in multi-industrial parties, because the shippers, when we talk to shippers with ammonia fuel, it's quite new for all of them, including ITOCHU. So they requested, some of them requested us to prepare the framework to make a knowledge sharing. So we decided to establish a framework of joint study with the party here. At the end, 34 parties joined. So but as you can see, many shippers and classification societies. And we set up common issues, 4 items: safety for ammonia vessel, safety for bunkering, ammonia specification, and the net CO2 emission. So we are supported by like ammonia producers about ammonia fuel specification and the net CO2 emissions. And the safety for ammonia fuel vessel, we are supported by like classification societies. But if talk about the safety for ammonia bunkering, we need involvement with various port authorities. So early this year, we decided to establish separated framework for ammonia bunkering with various port authorities, such as Singapore MPA or several European ports. And so now we are doing a joint session with 2 frameworks, especially for ammonia bunkering, safety. And then we selected key factors to develop the design of ammonia fuel vessel and bunkering vessel. So we are now focusing on discussion of key factors among working group, which is based on the party in joint study frameworks. Then thereafter, from now, so we intend to develop the pilot project, which is 200,000 deadweight bulk carriers to carry iron ore mainly, with the party here for our potential end users. But before that, we need to see the result of engine test by MA Energy Solutions, which is now currently underdoing, and bunkering safety guideline, like port authorities, MPA. Then we assume we can start more commercial discussions with all parties. Then our target is to achieve FID sometimes first quarter of next year to deliver the first vessel in first quarter of 2026. So that is our target. We fully appreciate this is very challenging, but we try to achieve it like this. Of course, in parallel, we understood that there is a lot of discussions at IMO. For example, MEPC 80s coming next year, June. We assume they will decide revised strategies and introduction of like MBM or something others. Also, EU ETS, they have discussions to adapt the maritime industries. So many issues is ongoing, and we believe that is very much following for our pilot project. But this is just the beginning of our journey, because our target is to expand ammonia vessel with the Japanese shipyards mainly. So after pilot project, we intend to develop second project of bulk carriers or other vessel type, such as container, tankers, car carriers, or anything. And also, in addition to Singapore, we intend to expand our global bunkering network with ammonia fuel. Otherwise, it's a bit difficult to expand vessel type with ammonia engine. So that is our plan for next stage after pilot. So in order for us to execute pilot project, we think we have challenges like here, technical challenge and commercial challenge. So technical challenge, of course, we don't have any international guideline for ammonia fuel vessel, and also the bunkering safety guideline. So we have to develop the design based on the alternative design approval from flag country, and also how we should incorporate the requirement from bunkering countries. So that is the challenge, how we can make an interface. And the second commercial challenge, of course, the people are talking about life cycle assessment, but we're not sure how we can get a certificate, especially like a well-to-tank. So we are still waiting for the directions. What would be a scope of CO2 emissions for maritime industries? And if we have to cover life cycle basis, then how we should arrange the certificate and trade the fuel with certificate. Because we cannot recognize the ammonia without a certificate. This is blue or this is green, because no difference. So how we can make ammonia bunkering business with certificate? That is still open. And also, if you talk about price mechanism, because at the beginning, we may have to consider long-term or medium-term contract to secure the ammonia. Because today in the market, we cannot have ammonia at anywhere, anytime. But in such case, we have to introduce the price index. Today, we have an index for ammonia, but for fertilizer use. Then question is, if we talk about ammonia fuel in the maritime sector, what will be a price mechanism? So this also, we have no answers. So we have to discuss with all stakeholders. So those are challenges. And then thereafter, of course, in order to achieve a FID, so we have to agree all commercial terms, including the price, charter rate, freight, or whatsoever. So I think at the end, we need a strong demand from end users. Otherwise, it's a bit difficult for any of our industries to make zero emission vessel. So coming back to the key factors at the joint study frameworks. So this is just 5 items nominated by ITOCHU through our discussion until now. So it's a bit more technical issues: gas detection system, water spray, vent gas, safety zone, bunkering stations. Of course, we would like to hear many opinions, not only from port authorities, but also maybe the participants today, if they have some technical ideas. Because we don't have any answer yet, but we have to find the directions before achieving FID. Otherwise, it's a bit difficult to develop. So I think we'd like to continue to discuss what would be directions for those key factors. And then life cycle assessment. So I think today very difficult to say what would be a well-to-gate CO2 emission in case of blue ammonia. So we are now focusing on only gate-to-gate. So because there is no international guideline when we started this project. So 2 years ago, we just put ITOCHU own preliminary idea benchmark, which is 1 CO2 ton emissions against 1 ammonia ton productions, which is based on the gate-to-gate. Because sometimes it's a bit difficult for ammonia producers to confirm what will be an emission at the well site. So we don't know yet how we can finalize the system of life cycle assessment. But definitely we focus on a gate-to-gate, while IMOs, their scope is tank-to-wake for the time being. So of course, we are happy, like today's participant, if someone has some ideas. So we are happy to discuss what would be a possible directions. Okay, so that is all, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Takeo-san. That was very interesting. We have a Q&A text function with this webinar, and we would urge the audience, please put your questions in there. In the meantime, I think it would be nice to discuss some of the questions which registrants had when they registered. So you may remember that there was an opportunity to put questions there when you registered. So let's just take them quickly. And I think that perhaps you've already answered them mostly on the way through, but just to check through to make sure people are looked after with their questions. So the first question here is, can you tell us your time frame to commercialize maritime ammonia and also the price competitiveness? And I think you probably covered that. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Okay, so maybe time frame we covered, but price competitiveness, I think it's good questions, but difficult questions, because if we talk about long-term contract of fuel procurement, and then very difficult to say the competitiveness of price, because which is linked to an index. So if index is based on natural gas or like crude oil or fixed price, or then how to compare with others? If you talk about the conventional fuel, so which is based on oil link. If you talk about the LNG as a fuel, maybe gas price link. So therefore, time to time, price is totally different. So some years ago, LNG price was low compared to the conventional fuel, but today, conventional fuel is, of course, there's some LNG. So 5 years later, 10 years later, no one knows what would be a conventional fuel price, LNG, methanol, ammonia. So I think it's very difficult. But I think we suggest the shippers to take decisions. Otherwise, I think we just stay on today's fuel. So that is, I think.
Yeah, we'll have to take a decision, whatever it is. And I guess as well, thrown into that mix of the difficulty with indexing prices and trying to decide is the pretty likely advent of market-based measures to come out of the IMO, which is going to change the relative price of alternative fuels such as ammonia compared to existing fossil fuels. And we don't know what that's going to be like. We don't know how it's going to be phased in and ramped up, or where it's going to end up and when. So it is rather tricky. But I suppose with an ambition to have some drafts on the table by MEPC 80 in June next year for market-based measures, maybe things will clarify. Hopefully things will clarify a little faster than we think. The next question I have here is, and this is, a very common question and a very good one. How can the maritime sector compete against agricultural and power generation sectors for green ammonia's business case? I think, I think for me, the first question is there a potential competition case between maritime fuel and other industries?
Okay, so I think, again, for maritime use, we assume we need to secure the fuel for long term. So means if we have a vessel, assuming if we have a 50 ammonia fuel vessel, which require 1 million ton per annum ammonia fuel. So which means if we have a 50 vessel, then we have to develop 1 million tons new productions. Then every 50 vessels, 1 million tons. So we have to build up in parallel. Or maybe someone may take a risk and to develop the vessel fast, or to develop the production fast. But in any cases, we have to build up in the same way. Otherwise, I'm not sure. And of course, I think that's the same for power industries. So agricultural business, I think for the time being, they are doing a spot business. So that's why maybe something different. But that is our ideas. So that's why we developed integrated projects to develop in parallel, but at the same time together.
No, that's very interesting, and that's a difference of business model compared to the way fuel is traded currently, where it's a long-term commitment between supplier and consumer for almost a big parcel of fuel over a long term. Yeah, so it's a different form of supply-demand relationship to what we might normally expect here. So the competition falls off a bit in that scenario. So this is the next question. How did ITOCHU select partners for the joint study? And that's the first part of the question. And the second part is, will the findings of the joint study be published and shared?
Okay, so as the joint study, so we have to say we did not select the partner by ourselves. So for first joint study, it's quite natural because we are marketing with many shippers. Then they requested us to prepare some frameworks. So we decided to prepare the frameworks with whom we had communications. And then once we launched, and then we also announced if some additional people are interested in these frameworks, please join us within 2 weeks. And then another 10 people is coming after first round. But of course, because of the confidential issues, we have to execute it MOU one by one. So in that sense, so second MOU, after we execute it, then of course, some additional people are coming, but we have to say that, sorry, we cannot make a third MOU. It takes, it's very difficult to achieve the mutual agreement with all, 30, 40 people. So just only, first round and second round, that's all. And publish. So because the joint study, this is knowledge sharing structures. So we have no intention to prepare any strategy or any directions. And also we have to take care antitrust issue, because as you can see, we have many people who is competing each other. If you talk about like mining companies, all 5 mining companies join this study. So if once we start to say something like a strategy or direction or decisions, and then it is a matter of antitrust. So joint study is for the purpose of knowledge sharings to run together. Then strategy or ideas or decisions should be done separately.
A separate thing.
That's right. And also from our point of view, because we'd like to make a business case. So this is kind of the entrance to understand what will be ammonia fuel.
Yeah.
Then if the people are showing further interest, then we can start a private discussion with some of them. So of course we are happy if someone who may not participate in the joint study, but they are interested in ammonia vessel, definitely please come to us, then we can work privately. So because we are a trading house, we try to develop the business case. That is our position.
Yeah. So sorry if I'm, so the outputs from the studies will be shared obviously internally, and you may also consider making them public. We
have no intention to make any public.
Okay. All right.
Of course, if someone intend to announce something, of course we can discuss. But that's the position.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And so the last question from the registrants was, what commitments would ITOCHU require from customers to underpin investments in storage and barges? I think I understand that question, but I think it's connected to offtake agreements.
Okay, I think maybe our approach is integrated project. So we make an investment for ammonia fuel vessel, but also ammonia bunkering infrastructures. That's why we know what we need for our investment. So we need commitment. So if our position is ammonia infrastructure, like a ship owners for ammonia bunkering vessel, so we need a commitment. But so in such case, commitment to like ammonia suppliers. But in order for ammonia supply to make a commitment, they need to have a commitment with the buyer of ammonia fuel.
Yeah.
Yeah, therefore, I think in order for us to develop the integrated project, all commitment should be done at the same time, almost. So that's the idea.
So the chain needs to connect all the way. And
Yep.
so the answer to the question, what commitments will be required, is pretty much the chain needs to be committed in its entirety. Yeah. Yeah.
Correct.
So just to go back to safety for a minute, and we had discussed safety in preparing for this webinar, and safety is getting a lot of attention as it is. But I suppose it would be interesting to know, I mean, I guess that you assume the safety concerns will be overcome.
Okay, yep. Of course, that is our assumption. But at the same time, we have to say the safety can be a reason not to do ammonia fuel.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, of course, in order for us to make confirmations, someone should make demonstrations.
There we are. Yeah.
Yeah. So originally we tried to make a pilot project with a smaller vessel. Then I think because then investment cost can be lower and more easier. But when we make a marketing, and many people requested us to prepare the solution for large vessel, because large vessel with more CO2 emissions.
Yeah.
So this was not our original idea, but we decided to demonstrate the pilot project, bigger vessel. And if we talk about the safety, we have to demonstrate two issues. One is engine room, second is the bunkering. I think the first one, engine room, maybe other, like a shipping company, some shipping company also intend to develop ammonia fuel, ammonia carriers. Mm-hmm. So in such case, I think they can demonstrate engine room safety. But for the bunkering side, I think ammonia carriers, we cannot demonstrate it. And so our position is to develop zero-emission vessel together with Japanese shipyards. So means we would like to develop volume zone, which is bulk carriers, tanker, containers with bunkering. Mm-hmm. So in order for us to work with shipyards, we would like to demonstrate the bunkering as well. So that is the two issues.
Yeah, and I suppose from the shipyard's point of view, the amount, the number of, although an ammonia carrier is a very obvious place to start, and that's almost certainly going to be one of the first vessels out there. From the shipyard's point of view, they're looking past that already to all the other types of ships they build, which is a far greater volume. So that it does, I can see how that makes some sense. All right. Yes, and you mentioned Japanese shipbuilders there, and you mentioned in the preparation as well. And we were talking about discussing this, you know, the importance of bringing in the shipbuilders at this stage. But I think you've already answered that question, at least partially, in talking about the safety. You're in Japan, the Japanese shipbuilders are accessible. You're dealing with a complex new problem, and they are seeing past converting or a new build ammonia carrier to this situation. So I think it's probably that's what I would assume would be the reasons you've gone with Japanese shipbuilders. Are there any other aspects that I haven't mentioned there?
Yeah, also we can say in Japan we can say we have maritime clusters. So not only the shipyard, but we have a large scale of shipping company. Yeah. And also the Japanese government supporting the maritime industries, and we have like a class NK, and also the banks for the financing. So we can say in Japan we have every parts.
You have an ecosystem.
Yeah.
And you also have some integrated port integration for ammonia projects in Japan. Isn't that right?
Of course, we invited Emirate as an observer for our joint study with port authorities. And but of course, if you talk about demand of the bunkering in general, the Japanese the bunker demand is relatively small compared to like Singapore.
Yeah.
Therefore, it's quite natural for us to start the Singapore as a first case.
Yeah.
And in case of Singapore, in general, they are doing touch bunker, means the bunkering service for the vessel offshore in the anchorage point. So if it's the case, maybe if we talk about the bunkering for the vessel in the terminal, so more safety concerns, because not only the vessel and the seaman on board, but also the people are working in the terminal.
Yeah.
So therefore, maybe the pilot case, we believe it may be better to do a bunkering service for the vessel offshore, anchorage point. So that is our idea.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. What do you think the big projects like this, and this is, you know, as you say, this is a big vessel, it's a big group, a lot of big players involved, Total being one of the energy providers, for instance. What do you think the impact will be on the smaller shipping companies, on the people who perhaps don't have the resources at the moment to get involved with this type of conversation? 10 years down the line, when this starts to roll out in a solid way, how are they going to fit into that picture?
Okay, so originally, like a trading house, like I told you, our main customer is family-owned ship owners, like in Japan, like Europe, like Greece, or many countries. But most of our close clients is family-controlled companies, and we assume, of course, some of the family-owned company. They intend to develop zero-emission vessel with ambitious, but many of them, we believe, it's because as you agree, there is no clear pictures what to be going on. So I think it may not be, good idea for family company to take a first risk. So this first risk should be taken by like a stock listed company or like this. Then maybe some years later, the people understand this is more standard vessel at that time. Then I think family-owned companies, some of them, they may start. So in that sense, if we participate first phase with other people, then I think because our client is our client for many years from now, so maybe some years later, when they are in a position to go, then we believe we can support them to shift. Again, ITOCHU is just trading a house. We are not ship owners. We are not a shipping company. We are not shipyards. But we have a role to support the party who intend to do something. So that's our position.
And it's great that organizations like yours are putting this together. It will bring everybody. It will bring everybody forward eventually. And indeed, whether it's whatever the fuel is, it's somebody needs to take the initiative. Somebody with the wherewithal. Thank you very much for this. Is it okay if I take some of the questions now from the audience? We have 9 sitting here at the moment. The first one is, when could we see green ammonia price in place? I hope that's more or less answered at this point. We've been talking at length about price already, and the fact that it's likely, at least initially, to be around longer term agreements, and there's a great deal of difficulty defining price at the moment.
Yeah.
So how do we contact you with a new idea? Has been asked. What's the easiest way to contact you?
What do you mean?
Well, I think
okay, yes, but okay, and then by email, or I think maybe you can ask Ammonia Energy Associations if you don't know our contact detail, then maybe they can inform our contact detail, and please contact us.
Absolutely, yeah. So you can contact us, the maritime side of the AEA, at fma@ammoniaenergy.org. But I will put that, or maybe Julian can put that in the chat here or in the Q&A themselves to make sure everyone can see it. So the next question: what is the pilot FID in 23 covering? Only vessel or also bunkering infrastructure?
Yes, we cover everything. So means the ammonia vessel, even if we have ammonia fuel vessel, if no bunkering system, so no meaning. So so that is, I think, the reason why we developed the integrated projects. So even maybe if the vessel is, the shipyard is ready, we can order the vessel with ammonia engine. But if we cannot supply ammonia fuel through the bunkering infrastructures, I think we cannot provide a service of zero emissions. So zero emission is the package of vessel and fuel.
So then that investment decision could lead to, well, I suppose, like from the top of my head, looking at maybe engines being available from MAN in 2024. And I don't know, you're thinking perhaps there could be a fuel supply situation by 26, 27?
Yep, we say FID 2023 next year, that's the target. And for delivery of first vessel in 2026, means we have to prepare bunker system in time. Means also we have to prepare everything for bunkering in 2026.
Yeah.
So which include not only bunkering vessel or infrastructure, but also ammonia procurement itself.
The fuel, yeah. So this, as you can, I think if you can see the Q&A there, Takeo-san, this Tua Duke Hansen is offering some assistance for the life cycle assessment part. So Tua, get in touch with us, we'll connect you up. So the next question: since ITOCHU is not developer of ammonia, how are you supporting or cooperating with interested green ammonia developers, or are you helping by creating market? So I think.
Yeah, of course, we are discussing with several green ammonia producers, but we have to say, so our target is to start our vessel from 2026. So means we need ammonia from 2026. And we believe that most of the green ammonias may be available sometimes later part of 2020s or maybe 2030s. So our idea is to develop the project with blue ammonia first, then shift into green. How we should shift? So I think that's we need to discuss. But maybe pilot case or maybe second project or more, because definitely we need more ammonias if people require.
So would you be looking at having agreement with one or two suppliers, and with them have a pathway transition from blue to green at some point in the future? So that would be pre-arranged.
Yeah, I think our assumption is blue ammonia players and green ammonia players is different. Therefore, so if we start from blue, then we need to discuss with blue people to start up. But then, of course, first, like a pilot project, so demand is limited because of the limited vessel. But again, one by one, we intend to expand. So again, if we have a 50 vessel, then we need 1 million tons. Then another 50 vessel, then additional 1 million tons. So this is like this. So I think we can make a pilot to demonstrate this is workable. Then thereafter, it's maybe depending upon the end users, how they need a zero emission vessel with ammonia. So still we don't know, but that is our idea.
Yeah, and I suppose alongside that, from the blue ammonia point of view, if you like it, which involves capturing the carbon from the ammonia making process with natural gas. It will depend on the development of the capture and sequestration infrastructure and everything as well. So
correct. So we do understand that many certificate systems are discussing what to be a definition of blue ammonias. Blue ammonias, more options.
Yeah, we are talking now about low carbon ammonia rather than colors and pathways. It's so complex.
Better to say like this.
A question also from Tu, what geographical area does the project and investment include?
I suppose this is for bunkering system. So then in such case, of course, this is depending upon the vessel. If we talk about large size bulk carriers to carry out iron ores, it's quite natural. Like a mining company in Australia, South Africa, Brazil, mainly to Far East or Europe. If we talk about the containers, if it is a feeders, then like Singapore, like Asian area or European areas. But if we talk about the large size containers and then more, international operations. So our idea is what is the vessel which we intend to develop. If it is bulk carriers, if it is tankers, if it is containers, or if it is other vessels, what is intended cargos and trade, then we can decide which would be a next place of our ammonia bunkering stations.
Yeah.
But apart from this, if we talk about like Singapore, because we have a Malacca Strait, like if we have like a Panama Canal or a Suez Canal or many places, we may have opportunities. Therefore, I think we don't know which will be next, but we are under discussion with various people at the various locations and see what to be next. So that is depending upon the project development.
Thank you. Yeah. And just it's occurred to me here, listening to that question, have you been talking to or considering getting involved in any green corridor projects?
Okay, thank you. Green corridor project is developed by like shippers. I mean, seller and buyer of commodities, or maybe liner company. But our approach is to provide a service of zero emission with vessel and fuel to end users.
Okay.
Then that is a matter of end users, how they carry the cargoes from where to where. So I think green corridors is more port side or government or shippers or buy and sell on the commodities. Well, maybe liner companies, but not like our approach.
No, this is a really important difference in approach. Yeah, thanks. And there's an anonymous attendee has asked the question: given current available insights from the various initiatives, so at this point in your journey, where do you see future bottlenecks for ammonia as a fuel, safety, etc.?
Okay, so of course the first bottleneck is engine development and safety guideline for bunkering, so which we cannot control. But then thereafter, I think keyword is commitment of zero emission by various stakeholders, not only shippers, shipping company, ship owners, fuel producers, suppliers, or port. So we need the commitment from many of categories. Otherwise, we cannot shift.
So it's this commitment you mentioned earlier and connecting the whole chain together.
Yeah, we say, of course, the party in each chain, we need a commitment from like a shippers, we need a commitment from shipping company, ship owners, or the bank, or like a port, or like government authorities, or like a fuel producer, fuel suppliers, or many of them involving this supply chains. So if we miss one piece, then we cannot make supply chain.
Okay, so I think you can probably see Samak Singh is asking, do you have any plans for partnering with green ammonia producers? And if yes, where do you see these producers emerging from geographically?
Okay, so of course, we have several discussions with the potential partners at the production site. So of course, we cannot disclose the name, but so if you talk about the green ammonias, I think one of the competitiveness is how we can get renewable energies, like a sun, like a wind. So in that sense, maybe the people say, where is the best locations? Some people say like Australia, some people say Middle East, some people say Africa, some people say South America. So maybe many opportunities. So, but I think for bunkering, we need a global network. So our idea is to set up a bunkering station and try to get the ammonia nearby.
Yeah.
So therefore, that is our approach.
So actually, so this is a good point, because it starts to get into how much you're thinking now of shifting ammonia from producers to bunkering points, because that changes it a little. You need to then become a shipper of ammonia as well. Is that being considered in your plans as maybe necessary?
Yeah, of course, if you talk about the supply chain from production side to bunkering side, we have to carry it. Yeah, so definitely at some stage, we have to use the ammonia carrier with the ammonia engine.
With ammonia engine, yeah, okay. So that's interesting, because of course there are ammonia carriers around today, but they're running on fuel oil. So the ideal situation here to deliver that zero carbon shipping service, you also have to have the let's call it the scope 3 side of it. Yeah. Peter Colson asks, regarding the safety guidelines, you mentioned IMO as producing a set of guidelines. Are there any other organizations that are working on safety guidelines that will be relevant to the terminal bunkering vessel and receiving vessel? So this is clearly probably separate from what CLASS are doing regarding the vessels themselves, but for bunkering terminal and receiving vessel.
I think if we talk about ammonia fuel vessel, ocean-going vessel, that is under IMO guidelines, while various classification societies issued their own guideline. But I think now IMO, the guideline is under discussions about ammonia fuel. And if you talk about terminal or bunkering vessel, that is part of safety guideline prepared by local authorities. So if we talk about like a Singapore, then Singapore government, like a MPA, they have to prepare their own guidelines. Europe, various ports, same. Each port, they should prepare their own guideline, because for example, like some port, like Singapore, they have option to make a bunkering like offshore. But some port just next to resident areas. Then in such case, maybe a mitigation or risk analysis against ammonia leakage is totally different.
Yeah.
So I think that's why we need to understand what would be a direction at various ports. Otherwise, we can sometimes there is a case that our vessel can go to the port A, but for bunkering, but not for port B for bunkering. Therefore, we are very much interested how the port authorities intend to prepare their guideline.
I think that's well covered, that question. I think we're getting close to time here on the webinar. There are more questions here. I'm reading at least two more questions. Scott Ryle apologizes for arriving late and not sure if answered already, but could you please ask where the ammonia is likely to come from? What countries? Yes, we have, Scott, we have mentioned that, but just please reach out to us separately if you want to ask us questions. We're always available here. And there was a question, an anonymous question. Could you please elaborate what role the fuel producers currently play in this study and if you expect that to change? But I think I saw Pavilion and Total mentioned as fuel producers. What role they play? Would you like to elaborate on that, or is there anything more to say?
Sorry, which one you are talking about?
Yeah, there's an anonymous question. Could you please elaborate what role the fuel producers currently play in this study, and do you expect that to change going forward?
Okay. So as you may see, the joint study framework, we didn't invite ammonia producers, but we got the support from various ammonia producers because we need their support to study about ammonia specifications, net CO2 emissions. Yeah. Therefore, we invited the various ammonia producers, but before that, we made a questionnaire to various ammonia producers about our questionnaire items and obtain a reply from them. And then we invited some of them to make a presentation against the joint study frameworks. So this is kind of sessions with producers for joint study.
So you're kind of reaching out to them for specifics on a kind of case-by-case basis, and they're, yeah.
Yep.
I think that we are coming close to time here, and we're going to have to wrap up. Thank you so much for that, Takeo-san. It's extremely interesting, and you've been very open, I think. So we like to finish these with the question at the end, and it's about a scenario. So it's 2030, and perhaps among other alternative fuel solutions, ammonia fuel is seeing significant uptake in the maritime industry. What are the three main enablers that have been developed to allow this?
Okay, so assuming that the engine is ready and safety guideline is ready, then I think, again, we need a commitment from each stakeholders, not only end user, but also all the party related to the supply chains. And especially, second is the strong demand from end users. So end users sometimes direct charter, or maybe indirect end users, means sometimes charterers, because of the demand of their clients, they intend to do zero emission logistics. Therefore, in any cases, we need demand from end user. Otherwise, I'm afraid that there's no reason for maritime industries or fuel industries to change.
Yeah.
And thirdly is how industries make a fair value of zero emission logistics. We have to say the best price should be high comparing to the conventional fuel, no doubt. And fuel price, very difficult to say to compare because, not the same as apple and apple, but because like a fish and meat, so totally different products.
Yeah.
But I think if the people just focus on low price only, then I'm afraid we cannot change it. So first, we have to make a fair value. What would be a zero emission? If it is demanded, then we can change. But if not, maybe better to stay and waiting for some regulations or something.
the fair evaluation of what zero emission is, proper life cycle assessment, frameworks which compare like for like. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Takeo Akamatsu. It's been really fantastic, as I say. I think we should round up there on the hour. Next webinar in October, as I mentioned, it will be focusing on safety. I do hope many of you will come back and bring your friends. We're trying to make these as insightful as possible. And the recordings of these webinars, as I say, are available on our website. The slides should be available as well, at least in some form. And we like to do a little summary as well. Hope to see you next time. Thank you all so much for coming along. It's been a really, really interesting hour, and it wouldn't be worth anything if no one turned up. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye from Malta.